Hello, and welcome to Comic Karma, the show where you will laugh, learn, and live in a way that will make you say, "Hey, sounds good, John, let's go." I'm the host, Jon Pirincci. If you don't know me, I can tell you a little bit about myself. I'm a comedian, actor, voiceover guy who does guys like, "Hey, Joe Pesci, how you freaking doing, guy? Hey, let's learn something, huh? Or Robert De Niro, "Hey, yo, I'm gonna freaking whack you, yo." And of course, being from Miami, Florida, of course, you got guys like Al Pacino from Scarface and Tony Montana. "Hey, how you doing? Oh, let's do the Comic Karma. You cockroach." And then you get guys like that. I'm also an author of a motivational spiritual book called What's a Little Wind. It's based on a man's perspective on life, being a Holocaust survivor. And this is what the guy said to me about Hurricane Andrew in Miami, Florida, back in 1992. He looked at me and he goes, "What's a little wind?" Which many people inspired me to do a podcast on this topic. That was his answer to being part of 180-mile-an-hour winds coming towards us during Hurricane Andrew. So, "Do you care about that, sir?" And he goes, "What's a little wind?" Because that's what he went through. Going through Auschwitz, he didn't care about 200-mile-an-hour winds coming towards us. So that's kind of basically what the podcast is about. You'll basically laugh, you'll learn, and you'll live. We'll have you listen to some of the top comedians in the country. Like I said, it's not always laughs when you start trying to make people laugh. You learn how life is not that bad when you think about it. And you live on how your dreams can totally come true. Our first guest is a nationally known comedian, Kurtz, who has worked with some of the top comics in the country over the last 40 years. I've known Perry for over 30 years. Perry's worked with people unbelievable, like Robin Williams, Rodney Dangerfield, Bill Cosby, and even the comedy legend, Milton Berle. Can't believe you met Milton Berle.
He was a good friend.
I've always wanted to meet him. Welcome, Perry. Welcome to Comic Karma. How you doing tonight?
Hey, it's nice to be here.
Good. Nice to have you come to my first podcast show.
I'm so excited. I can't believe it. Just trying to sit still.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm trying to sit still, too. I can't believe I'm in your presence. Oh, my God.
I know. Didn't bring me any presents this time. I was expecting presents for doing the show.
So, I know you've been around, obviously, for the past 40 years.
Long time.
And I talked to a lot of comedians over the years. I've obviously been doing stand-up all over the country, colleges, clubs, and so on and so on. And I hear these crazy stories about how people got started. And one of the main reasons of getting into comedy, you just hear a lot of different things from people. How did you get involved in this crazy world of comedy? I mean, Perry, you were making over $100,000 a year in publishing back in the 70s. That's like making, $150,000 or $200,000.
That's like making
then.
$500 now. I was making $143,000 after taxes. I was an art director for a religious publishing house owned by Jews who made publishings, tithing boxes, illustrated Bibles, magazines for foreign missionaries, all for Gentiles. So the Jews made it for the Gentiles. I was the art director, and my last assignment, I had to illustrate the Bible in full color so it looked like photographs. They didn't have the photo renderings that we have now. I had to actually illustrate, no outlines. And I had to read the Bible every day and then draw it out and then draw it in color and fill it in. And then I had to photograph it and make plates, which were then plastic plates, which you would dip in an emulsion and part would peel off, very old style.
Right.
And I went home one day after working 18 hours for, I think, 4 or 5 days in a row. And at that time, because I was living really well, I had a big apartment, 4-bedroom apartment, 3 cars.
Wow.
And I had the party place, so everybody came to my house to party. They all had keys. I would come home, people sitting there waiting for me to party.
You can imagine the parties there back then. Yeah.
Pretty wasted. And I was taking a shower, and I opened my eyes. I'm washing the soap out of my hair. And I open my eyes, and there's Jesus nailed to the wall. He's got a stake through stake through each wrist.
You're serious?
Yeah. And
Jesus was in your shower.
Well, it sure looked like it to me. The blood was running down his arms, mixing. The blood from his hands was mixing with the blood from his feet in the water. And he looks up at me and goes, "Help me." And I thought it was one of my friends who was just jerking me around. And I said, "Hey, come on." And I laughed. I smashed my head into a shower nozzle and woke up on the floor hours later in a pool of blood and all my friends standing over me. So he took me to a hospital. I got a bunch of stitches in the back of my head, went and spoke to a shrink. And he said that because I had worked on creating these images when I relaxed, the third-dimensional images that I had to illustrate became real. And even when I say it, I still see Jesus on the wall. Both hands up like this. His wrists were right, even with his ears. The feet were crossed. The left foot was over the right foot. And there was a stake through his ankles. It was as real as you are right now.
Oh, my God. That is amazing.
And so I had $60,000 in the bank that I'd saved up. And I quit the job, and I started doing comedy. Because I had always wanted to be a comedian. People always told me, you should be a comedian.
Yeah. Yeah, I've heard a lot of that myself. It's funny.
Well, you should someday.
And you told me, I guess you were 10 years old, and
when I was 10, I realized how much I liked the adulation of the audience. I didn't understand what it was, but I was on this children's show, and it was a guy named Gene London. It was in Philadelphia, which is where I grew up.
Right.
And he had a bunch of kids on the stage, and he was drawing cartoons on a big drawing pad. And standing in back of him was the kids, and the audience was to our left. And he gave me his chimpanzee to hold. And I was a Cub Scout. I had on my Cub Scout uniform.
Right.
And it took a taffy that it had and stuck it to my hair. And then it was trying to pull it out of my hair. And I just stood there like nothing was happening with my head jerking back and forth with the monkey going nuts and going, making all kinds of noises. And the crowd was hysterical. And then somebody came out and they took the monkey from me. But I came out of there going, I can't believe the response I got from the audience. And that made me understand why people do perform. But with comedy, it's a lot different than when you get up and do a play. When you do a play, you're using somebody else's words, somebody else's emotion. When you're doing comedy, it's yourself. So there's more at stake up there. So when you get a laugh, there's nothing.
Isn't that funny? Because I don't think I ever told you, but when I was 9 years old, I was about, I guess, 5th or 6th grade. And all of a sudden, all these voices started coming out of me. I started making fun of this girl named Kristen, a blonde girl. And she used to talk like this. And I used to do that. And I had another guy named Sal. He was an Italian guy. And he used to talk like this. I'm like 9 years old and doing these impressions.
You sound like a mobster at 9?
Yes, seriously. You know, and the whole, and all through school and everything. It's funny, you started off at 10. I started around 9 or 10 years old about the same time. And I'm doing impressions, and I'm doing, Star Trek in the library, Spock, I can't believe you're here. Captain, what are you talking about? Oh, you just get kicked out of the library and all that, and all these voices and noises used to come out of me. So I can relate.
Yeah.
It's crazy, isn't it?
Yep.
50 years later, we're still doing this stuff, huh?
Well, 40 for me. Well, no, I started at 10. I'm going to be 64.
Yeah.
So 53 years later.
Yeah, I'm 54, yeah.
So
it sounds great, I mean. But now here's a story that I can't believe you told me this one time, and that's why I wanted to bring it up to my Comic Karma show.
Oh, the relevance to the reason we're all here today?
Kind of.
Should we point out to the studio audience, hey, guys, thanks for being here.
Thanks for being here. You said you were drinking. No, this is true. You were drinking one time.
This was 1974, the same year I quit the job.
And you decided to kill yourself.
Well, I
what
drank.
What was that all about?
So I was down in Atlantic City, which was the place to go. When you live in Philadelphia, you would go down the shore.
Right.
The song Under the Boardwalk. That was all real.
That's right.
I was under the boardwalk many, many times. And that was the place you would go to party and hang out in the summer and meet girls. So I was in a bar drinking double shots of Southern Comfort because I have a sweet tooth. I got hooked on Southern Comfort because it's like candy, but it's really strong. And I was drinking double shots of Southern Comfort chased with a Coke no ice.
Right.
And Southern Comfort is strong. This is the stuff that killed Janis Joplin, and she was almost a man, and it killed her.
Wow.
So I was drinking 2 shots, and this big trucker comes in, sits down, and goes, damn, little man like you drinking all that? Can't believe you're drinking all that. Little guy like you, can you drink more, little man? And I said, yeah. And he bought me 6 more double shots. That's 3/4 of a bottle.
Oh, my God.
Now, I'm a little guy. I'm a little under 6 feet tall. All right, 7 inches under 6 feet tall. No, 7 inches under 6 feet tall. And I drank it all, and he left. And I felt my body change into liquid mercury, and I slowly slid off my stool, and I could actually hear the sound as I was sliding on. And I hit the floor, and I felt my face on the cold linoleum, and I said to myself, well, I'm drunk as hell. I guess it should be easy to pick up a woman now. Because, guys always think they're real sexy because they can mumble and drool at the same time.
Of course.
So I got up to my knees, and I went out of the bar, and I did one of those falls where I hit one knee, and then I hit the other one, and I bounced back up, looked over and watched myself do it in slow motion, and went, whoa. I did my Keanu Reeves. Whoa. And then I kept walking. Then I stabilized myself against the invisible where you see the drunks, and there's a wall there, and they seem to lean against it, and it makes it better.
Right.
Went into the bar, and I was trying to talk to women, and I knew they couldn't understand me because I couldn't understand me.
Right.
It was basically,
yeah. Yeah, baby, yeah.
Yeah, and I remember going up to one, and I went, what? Me? And the women will know what that means. And the last thing I remember was talking to a little black girl in the corner who had a big teased up hair, and it was cut square. She looked like a bush, like lawn sculpture. And she was just staring at me, but she wasn't trying to get away or flipping me off like the other women. So I thought I was doing really well with this girl. But she was just staring at me. And I walked out across the street, and I was standing on the end of the dock looking down at the cold Atlantic Ocean, watching the waves splashing up. And I said, I don't want to live anymore. Nobody likes me. I'm going to kill myself.
Wow.
And I stepped off the dock. What I didn't see was 6 feet down was another dock sticking out. And I landed on that, smashed my head on a metal pipe, and woke up in jail the next morning.
Oh, my God.
On my back in a room with, I guess, 35, 40 criminals or whatever you call them. And I had vomit on my chest. And I said, I hope this is my own vomit. My friend bailed me out, told me that I had climbed 2 10-foot chain link fences to get to the dock.
Oh, my God.
It was a Coast Guard dock, and it cost me $1,000 in a fine. Because it was government property.
That's crazy.
And I'm sitting in the car, and he's driving me back, and I get this big knot on the side of my head. And I said, man, I was pretty wasted last night. He says, yeah, you were totaled. I said, the last thing I remember was talking to a little black girl. He goes, black girl, you were on your knees talking to a bar stool.
No, bar stool.
So I stopped drinking.
Are you kidding me? Really?
Really.
You're talking to a bar stool?
I didn't know. I couldn't see.
Oh, my
and
God.
so I stopped drinking.
I guess you really were hammered, weren't you?
Are you kidding? 3/4 of a bottle of Southern Comfort?
I guess so.
And so I haven't had any alcohol since 74.
So seriously,
And
you have not...
that was the same year I decided I was going to change my life. All my life I wanted to be an artist.
Right.
And once I had done that and quit, I said I'm going to be a comedian because everybody thinks I should be. And I went to New Jersey, back to New Jersey to the Crazy Horse Saloon in Barrington, New Jersey. And I entered a talent contest where I played my electric guitar, and I did a dirty version of Eleanor Rigby in Jerry Lewis's voice. Eleanor Rigby, touching yourself in the dark when there's nobody there. And I won $500. I won $500.
A lady.
So I said, I'm going to do this for a living. And that was the beginning of my infamous career, which has led me here.
Well, that's incredible.
So I guess it's over now.
So 40 years you haven't had a drink. And, gee, I wish I can go 40 hours without getting a drink.
Yeah, you like to drink.
Oh, boy, I like to have a few drinks here and there.
Hey, it's John, I can't drive home. The taxi won't let me in.
Yeah, do you notice I sound like Owen Wilson when I drink?
You do.
Wow, how you doing? What's going on? Wow, yeah. Have another beer. Yeah.
You're the only guy I know. The Uber drivers see you and they throw up in their own car.
Exactly. You know, it's funny. I don't know if I ever told you, but back in 1986, you almost died, and I almost died.
What happened to you?
I almost drowned.
Was this during one of your shows?
No.
Oh, a different type of death.
Yeah, it was a different type of death, yeah. Swimming in Honolulu, and the tides and currents were there. Actually, this sign said, don't swim unless you're local, and we didn't care. So basically,
Wait a minute, did it say local or loco?
Locals.
Because if it said loco, then it would make sense.
So there were my friend Pete and John, and we said, hey, let's go swimming. And they said, you sure? I said, yeah, come on, don't do it. They said, come on, let's go. So we ended up...
And how old were you?
About 26, 25 years old.
All right.
So we're jumping in the water, and John's right next to me, and we're both swimming, and all of a sudden, next thing I know, about 10 minutes later, I'm about 50 yards away from the shore. I try to swim in, and I can't. Finally, I start freaking out, saying I don't want to die. John is actually saying the exact same thing, right about 20 feet away from me on the left-hand side. And I look up into the heavens, and I go, I don't want to die. What should I do? I don't want to die. What should I do? Staring at the sky. The second I said that, Perry, I'm talking within 30 seconds, for some unknown reason, I swam to the right, parallel to the shore. And then I find out that John was following me, my friend, and he did the same thing. And both of us ended up going and getting pushed back in to the shore, and the tides disappeared, and the eddies disappeared. Instead of pushing me out, it pushed me in the second I said that. Now we're entering into the shore. And I find out many years later, after I'm talking, we're still friends 30 years later, believe it or not, my friend Pete and John. I go, John, did you, same thing happen to you? You swam? And he goes, yeah. He goes, but I just didn't really swim in. A sand dune came out of nowhere, and I stepped on it, got my breath, and got shallower and shallower and swam in.
Wow.
Really, all because that little guidance of faith that some people believe and some don't. But obviously we do believe in it, and 30 years later we still live and having a great time. There you go, karma.
Wow.
Right there. Yeah, isn't that
amazing?
Sounds
like a miracle.
Yeah.
Can I get a hallelujah?
Hallelujah.
Everybody in the audience, hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
No, we don't need you guys to dance. It's okay.
So then you told me you were at a strip club and you were hanging out.
Yeah, well, you got to understand how that happened. In 79.
And you told me you were hanging out with Bill Cosby. Let me just ask you a couple,
Well, let's get into what happened there, how I met him, because you don't just hang out with a guy like that.
Right.
You got to be a reason. I moved to San Francisco in 79 to become a full-time comedian because I couldn't make any money doing it in Philly.
Right.
New York, nobody was paying you to perform. So I moved out there, and the first job I got was emceeing at a male strip show for women in San Francisco. Now, these were the days when there was 10, 11 women for every straight man. And I had the only show in the city that the women could go see guys strip at. I was the MC and the manager and the dancer. And so I'd stand up there in my tuxedo with my big glasses and big hair and talk dirty to the women. And then one night some women yelled, "Take it off." They were blind, but I realized that they don't really look. They just listen. And because the club was owned by the mafia, I was allowed to sit at the family table across the street at Enrico's.
Yeah.
There was a restaurant called Enrico's, owned by a guy named Enrico Banducci, and that's where the celebrities would go and have their dinner. Mm-hmm. There was a big 18-foot marble table out on the front patio, and all the celebrities would sit there and eat. Debbie Reynolds was there one night. I met Milton Berle there, and because I ran one of the major clubs, I was allowed to sit there.
Really, Milton Berle, huh?
Yeah. So I was sitting there, and then Bill Cosby comes over and sits down. "Hello, how are you? I'm Bill." I went, "Hi, Bill. I know who you are." You know. Well, no, I didn't do any voices. And he was there every month. He came and always brought boxes of cigars.
Oh, okay.
And there was a guy named Dr. Irwin Corey, who I'm sure is dead by now. And,
I know, of course, I know Irwin Corey.
And I remember he came in. See, everybody asked me, "Do you believe the stuff about Bill?" And all I can say is that there was a time where he stuck a cigar in my mouth. At least I think it was a cigar. All right, here's the story. He came in with this box of Cuban cigars. It was 24 inches wide and 18 inches deep. Each cigar was 17 and a half inches long.
Really?
But they were rolled like joints. They were like an inch and a half thick, down to 3/4 of an inch at the sides. They were tapered. So all the stars and the club owners and mafia guys were sitting there. Mm-hmm. And I picked one up, stuck it in my mouth, and he looks at me and goes, "You look stupid." He pulled that out of my mouth, broke it in half, and stuck it back in.
Bill Cosby for you.
But he always said the key to comedy is personality. You have to learn who you are and learn to be yourself.
I believe it.
If you talk about your life, number one, it's real, it's your own emotion, and you never get lost. Take your own life stories, and if you take them up on stage, it's always contiguous. And that's what he does. And as you develop comedically, you learn how to give your point of view so that what you thought was funny is funny to the audience.
Right.
There was one time I was having dinner with him, and Milton was there. Milton Berle came down a lot and hung out with us. He became like a grandfather to me. And they said, Andy Kaufman.
Milton Berle.
Yeah, he said, Andy Kaufman's sitting inside. Go say hi. I went, really? So I go walking in, Andy Kaufman's sitting by himself. He's got a newspaper. And I walk up to his table. I said, hi, Andy. I'm Perry Kurtz. I'm a comedian. And he looks at me, shut up. Get the F out of here. And he screams at the top of his lungs.
Really?
And then he opens up the paper and just starts reading like nothing happened. I go walking out there, and they're hysterical because they knew that's what was going to happen.
Oh, yeah.
They set me up.
What
But
about
Bill was always nice. Some woman that I met at the strip club took me to Vegas, and we went to see Bill's show, and we're sitting in the front row, and he stopped in the middle of the show and says, oh, there's my friend. He's a comedian, Perry Kurtz, right in the front. Hey, Dave, have him come backstage, get him some food after the show.
Oh,
and it
nice.
goes on. He did like an hour and a half show.
That's amazing.
He was
What
always
about,
nice to me, never gave me anything that I had to swallow.
What about good old Robin Williams? Obviously, you were very upset about his passing, you know.
When I got to San Francisco in '79, he was just coming off of Mork and Mindy, which he became a pretty big star on.
Of course, yeah.
That really broke him. And he was just one of the regular guys. All the comics were just, we would hang out and stand outside, and they would drink, and we'd stand out there, and we'd all get stoned. And there was no order in those days. You didn't have a list when you were going up. We'd be out there smoking, and all of a sudden the producer would come and go, you're next. I remember one time I went on stage and exhaled and blew a big puff of smoke out. And they said there was a 30% increase in food sales during my show.
Oh, okay.
But he was just one of the guys hanging out. And he was already a superstar. He would walk into the club. The club held 78 people. It was very small. It was long. It's called the Holy City Zoo.
Of course.
And it was made entirely of wood from the Holy City Church, which was in San Diego.
Oh, okay.
And people believed that that holy connection with the wood made this a magical place where anything worked. You could say the dumbest stuff on stage.
Right.
And the crowds would go nuts. And it was a neighborhood club. People would know Robin's there. They would smell him, and the club would fill up. Well, Tuesday and Thursdays for 4 years, I hosted a show there, an open mic. And he would come down every night and get up and do an hour of improv with me. Just the two of us. 2 hours a week for 4 years. And
that's amazing.
Got to know him very well.
So he's a really nice guy, basically. He's
sweetest guy. And
that's what I heard, yeah.
But he lived to make people happy. When everybody left and he was alone, like we'd go to a restaurant, we'd go to the Sugar Plum.
Yeah.
And if everybody got up from the table and he was just sitting there, he would cross his hands and his eyes would look down at the floor. He instantly got depressed.
Depressed, really?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Because when he grew up, his father was a CEO of Ford Motor Company. He was the CEO of Lincoln.
Right.
And Mommy and Daddy were on the road 40 weeks a year. And he lived in this giant house. I mean, it was like a block and a half long. He had a giant room. And he started out with a couple hundred Army men. When he died, he had over 3,200. But each one of those, because he wasn't allowed out and he didn't play with kids, he lived with a maid. And that's the only association.
He started doing characters for his own.
Each one of those little army men got a name and a character and a voice. And that's where they all came from in him.
Right.
And his magic is that everything he's ever heard is stored in his brain, and it comes out at the right time. That's why if you see him 7 or 8 times, you look at a bunch of his shows, you'll see the same bit.
Right.
But it's been set up in a different way.
Right.
So, yeah, we were really close. And I really hadn't talked to him. I only saw him maybe 5 or 6 times since '95. But he would always come up and hug me. And I remember my mother came to San Francisco in, I think, '86. And he went over and he goes, Mrs. Kurtz. And he leaned over and he kissed her right on the lips. And, she had to get to a phone, call her friends in Philly. Robin Williams kissed me. He tried to slip me the tongue. I don't think he did, but that's the way my mother is. But, when he died, I got 67 texts and 67 texts and 43 phone calls in 2 hours.
One of them was mine. I called you.
And everybody said the same thing.
New York,
Everybody said the same thing. Are you okay? And it took me 3 nights before I was able to sleep. But we saw it coming. We knew he was like this.
Yeah.
And his problem with drugs and alcohol is he didn't have a cutoff point. You know, some people say, I can't drink anymore. I'm really messed up.
Right.
You know, even people that are doing coke will say, I can't do it as well. Not with coke. But he never shut it down. He would keep doing whatever he was doing until he was unconscious.
Really quick, hey, did you learn anything inspirational or motivational or anything from Milton Berle, Robin Williams, Bill Cosby, or anybody?
Well, they all basically told me that it's all a matter of being yourself, being comfortable in your own skin, as they say, unless you can change that, which is what you do and you become the characters. But the bottom line is you have to be a person. And once you're aware of who you are and the way you think and why you react to things, then you can start writing material that is yours that nobody else can do. And they told me, you know, you got to get comfortable with yourself. The key is perform all the time. I tell people.
What about in general, like in life in general, not comedy? Anything interesting that they told you, you know, how they became successful, why they became successful?
No, they never explained how. I know Milton started out doing movies back in the 40s, so I don't know anything.
Right.
And Bill started out just doing albums. I remember when I was 10 years old listening to his albums.
Right, exactly.
And they just do it and do it and do it, and then you get bigger rooms, and you play bigger rooms, and then you're doing concerts, and then, you know, you can go out and be accused of dosing women and raping them and still sell out giant concert venues with 60,000 people.
So all these amazing people you met over the years. I mean, now you're very happy things have worked out. You have a daughter, Bella.
I have a beautiful 10-year-old daughter who just started making horror movies yesterday.
And you had her when you were 53.
53, and my wife was on birth control, and I knocked her up. And I figured out how that was possible. Back in the 60s and 70s, I smoked my body weight in pot, and I did at least half my body weight in acid and mushrooms. And they say when you do drugs like that, it distorts your chromosomes and you have a baby with an extra arm and a finger growing out of its head. So I didn't want to have children. I met a woman in 1990 online who had 3 kids.
Right.
They didn't know their fathers. I fell in love with them, and I asked all 4 of them to marry me and decided to raise this family. I stopped doing the road in 95 so I could be there for my kids.
That's right, yeah.
So my wife was on birth control because we discussed having kids and said no, and she got pregnant. And I found out what it is. All the drugs I did, my sperm have got wings, long arms, and 9 tails. So they got speed but no sense of direction. And that's what happened. So now I got this beautiful little 10-year-old girl who does stand-up comedy with me, writes her own jokes, is funny as hell. I asked her, do you want to see Santa this year? She said, Dad, I'm a little old to want to sit on a random stranger's lap.
She gets that definitely from you.
Yeah.
And now you're doing senior centers now.
That's where my money's coming from, playing senior centers and convalescent hospitals. The shut-ins, the people that can't get out. I go to them and make them laugh by talking with them.
Hi, how are you, Perry? You make me laugh.
I have that. I get that. You're really funny.
Oh, my God, you're so funny. I'm a nice lady. How are you?
I haven't run
I'm Mrs. Goldberg.
But it's paying the bills.
It's paying the bills and everything. That's good. That's good. And, you know, I guess basically you had pretty amazing things, you know. I mean, you know, being from Philly and San Francisco and L.A. and met all these great people and all these crazy things have happened to you. And now are you doing some karaoke, and so am I?
I got into karaoke 4.5 years ago and became addicted to it. It has become a super subcult.
And thank you for getting me into it 3 years ago.
Into it.
It's true. You got me into it. Like, I had never sang. I mean, I sang in high school and I'd sing in the shower and in the car, but if it wasn't for you, I would never start off at, you know, Corky's. And he said, John, you got to start doing karaoke. Really, Perry? He said, yeah. Started doing it. And you're right. I'm addicted to it.
Yeah.
When I'm not doing stand-up, I'm doing karaoke.
Yeah.
And
what I do is different. I get up and I make up songs about what the audience is doing as they're doing it.
Right.
So it's instantaneous.
Right.
You know, I could talk about a guy sitting there stroking his mustache. I'm up here talking about your stash. I don't really care trying to watch it go past, and I'm up here trying to watch my ass. So, and then I got into rapping, and that's really got me an amazing fan base. The young people, as I like to call them, they love the rapping. They love the rapping stuff, the kids these days.
Yo, it's good rapping. How y'all doing, man? It's good. So funny. Yeah, I love doing that, you know, and, I have to admit, I can't complain about my life. Done very well, and, I just did Jersey Boys. Some people come through, John, was that you in Jersey Boys? Yeah, it was me, and I get to hang out with Clint Eastwood, and Christopher Walken for 3 days.
You didn't sleep with them, did you?
No, of course not.
Damn.
But Clint is right next to me, and I'm looking at this guy. I've known this guy, watching this guy for 50 years. And I go out to him, he looks at me, and I look at him, I go, how you doing, sir? And he goes, I'm fine. How are you? And I'm doing good. And he goes, yeah. And I was scared. I thought he was going to say something. I'm like, saying, hey, yeah, come on, make my day.
Does he sound like that when he's happy?
Yes.
That's so bizarre.
It's amazing.
Imagine when he's like in bed. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, make my day, baby, yeah. Then you got Christopher Walken, and he's like hanging out by himself all the time.
You did Christopher Walken?
Yeah. And, I was hanging out with Christopher Walken, and then he'd walk by and say, hey, Chris, how you doing? He'd go, I'm fine. How are you? I said, good. Yeah, you make a good mafia guy. Thank you, Chris. Okay. Leave me alone. I'll talk to you later. Really. Christopher Walken, again, watching him since Deer Hunter back in 1974. I mean, it's amazing hanging out with these guys. But, and, being here all these years, 15 years, and, wanted to get into the podcast, and, I just found out, a few months ago that, my book, What's a Little Wind, is available all over Amazon in all the countries, China, Japan, England, and I found out it's also available in Barnes & Noble. And the reason I'm bringing
what's it called, and what's her name again?
Her name is What's a Little Wind. So the point is I'm bringing this up is that people come to me and says, John, how long did it take you to write this book, and why did you write the book? I said, well, I wrote the book because I just to see if I could. And I did. And I was inspired by a man called Joel Bauer, and he said, everyone has a book in themselves. And I said, gee, can I really write a book? And it just came to me, and thought about the man from 22 years ago, and I said, let's write a spiritual, inspirational book about what he said earlier in the podcast, What's a Little Wind? And I've talked to people who've thought about writing a book, and they never did. And I've talked to other people that took years to write one, and I wrote mine in 4 months. And they asked me, how the hell did you do that? Because I was motivated, and I really wanted to share my story. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to expand out to videos and to podcasts and interview some good friends like Perry Kurtz over here. And the bottom line is to just you only live once. Go for whatever you can, and give it a try. So my question to you, Perry, is what can you, that's my advice to listeners, and what is your advice since you got basically 10 years on me, and you've had a pretty amazing, hanging out with people like Robin Williams and Milton Berle.
I worked with Jerry Seinfeld, Rosie O'Donnell, Bill Maher.
Wow.
It's the level of comedians that I've had contact with, that I've worked with, is beyond belief.
That's incredible.
But the bottom line is, in life, if you want something, and I've got 4 kids, the other 3 are all very successful at what they do because they're focused, and I tell them, you can do anything you want if you believe in yourself enough and you think it's that important, whatever it is.
Yeah.
When I said 3 years ago I'm going to start doing senior shows, every comic in L.A. was laughing at me. You're crazy. You're
right.
You'll never make a living at that.
Yeah, exactly.
Now it's paying all my bills. They're calling me. It's great.
Yeah.
And I'm having fun doing it.
Yeah.
So the trick is...
And you're helping, the great thing about this is that you're helping older people who really had no humor. They have no, not much of a life. They just...
I've gotten calls from some of the
social
social
hanging out, eat sandwiches
directors
and stuff, and hang out at the courtyard, and all of a sudden, a funny guy like you comes in and talks and makes them laugh,
Yep, and sing. I make them sing. I forced them. But the bottom line is the laughter creates endorphins in the body, which relieve stress and pain. In, I think it was 84, I was in Miami Beach, went down there, got flown out there by the American Cancer Society. They believed that laughter relieves stress and pain.
I agree.
We gave an hour-and-a-half comedy show to terminal cancer patients, all in the beds. They propped them up. Some were falling asleep, could barely move. And we gave them a show. And they said that some of them had relief for almost 72 hours. They were free of pain.
Isn't that amazing?
The minimum was 5 hours after an hour-and-a-half show. So when I go into the place with the seniors, they laugh, they feel good, and I've gotten letters from some of the people thanking me, saying that it made them feel good about themselves because we talked about them.
Right.
And it helped them feel better. So bottom line is, if you want to do something, got a plan. Don't do it haphazardly.
Yeah.
Set your steps out.
I
But
agree.
never, ever, ever give up. And
That's right.
don't let anybody tell you can't do it.
Absolutely. That's exactly what I wanted to inspire with this podcast. That's what my book is about. That's why I want to invite Perry, and we have a lot of other great comedians coming up week after week. And it's so true. It is just so true that you only have one life.
That we know of.
That we know of, yes. And now the negativity, do not hang out with negative people. Do not listen to people saying you can't do this, you can't do that. Just give it a shot, and yes, you can. And you just never know what would happen. If you hear some of the stories of people, how they got started, it's like I just heard about how Oprah, got her career going on Soul Sunday, and she had absolutely no intentions of having a talk show. She was just a news reporter, and she ended up doing a talk show in Chicago, and they said, you're going against Phil Donahue. Are you crazy? So what? She did it, and then she beat Phil Donahue's ratings, and now people saw her, and they offered her own show, and they changed the show to the Oprah Winfrey Show, and now 30 years later, look at her.
She's one of the richest women
in the world, but I love her because she inspires people to do the best things you can, and you only live one life, and just go for it because you never know. So that's our podcast for today, and again, we want to say thank you for Perry. Is there one more last thing you want to say to everybody here?
I want to wish you all a wonderful life. Remember, if it's important, really important, and you need to make it important, you can do whatever you want, and never let anybody stop you. I don't care what people tell me when they say don't go into that neighborhood. You're going to die in that club.
Exactly.
They're going to hate you. I go in there and I kick it. I just go full force and I say nothing is going to stop me.
Yeah, that's the inspiring show for the podcast. I'm very happy to be doing this.
Are we going to be taking live calls?
And
if you want to call in now,
yeah,
our number is 855-555.
1212. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You know what's going to happen? People are going to actually dial that.
That's scary, isn't it? So, again, thank you very much. I'm Jon Pirincci with Comic Karma. We will see you next week. Thank you very much. Have a good night.